Okay, at this time we will welcome University of Wisconsin head coach Greg Gard. I would ask that if you have questions, please raise your hand. We have 2 microphone holders. I would have a microphone brought to you, and then we will, I would ask that you give your name and your media outlet before you ask your question. So where are my microphone holders? Do we have them? Okay, great. So I have one right down here in front to start. Go ahead. Yep, let's come down.
Chris Murray, Philadelphia Sunday Sun. Back during early in the season when you guys were 9-9 and 1-4 in the conference, what one thing changed with it that you saw in your team outside of Nigel Hayes coming out and challenging his team? But what on the court and also from an emotional standpoint did you see in your team after that?
Well, the biggest thing was the chemistry in the locker room, and that grew immensely during that time from late December through the first part of February. I think with losing so many guys from last year, with 4 seniors, 2 of them being fifth-year guys that have been in the program for a long time, and then Sam Decker leaving early, we just had a lot of shoes to fill and a lot of roles to establish yet, and it took us a while to grow through that. And I think all those adverse moments we went through early in the year helped fortify and establish our identity and roles of everybody on the team, and it just took a little while for that. But the biggest thing is the locker room, how that's grown and come together, the chemistry that's evolved there, and that eventually started to show itself on the floor.
Stay here in the second row with Dana.
Dana O'Neill with ESPN. Greg, the emotional roller coaster that you've been on this year, this whole process, have you been allowed yourself a few minutes to look back and breathe and appreciate everything? I mean, and kind of where's your head right now with all of this?
I haven't really, Dana. There's been so much that's encompassed the past year, really going back to, the Final Four last year and that whole run into the spring with my dad and that whole journey with him with cancer, and then obviously everything that played out in December with Coach Ryan retiring. And it's really been a whirlwind. Someday maybe it'll be in my book. But it's been surreal. Everything has happened so fast, and there's been so many events that have, it's been the worst year of my life and it's been the best year of my life rolled into one. Hopefully we got a couple more weeks left in us here and weekends. Then at that point in time, maybe in May, I'll be able to sit back and really reflect on it. But fortunately, these guys have kept me busy, so I don't have to worry about looking in the rearview mirror right yet.
Okay, in the back there, go ahead.
Michael Luongo, AP Broadcast. We talk about Notre Dame and talk about the matchup there and what stands out about them and your biggest challenge facing them.
Well, obviously Mike's got a great team. It seems like every year nobody talks about Notre Dame in the Selection Sunday or that first week, but you get to the second weekend, there they are. I think he's done a tremendous job of really identifying the type of student athlete he needs at Notre Dame to fit to his system. And much like us, the names change, the numbers change, but the production in terms of what they do on the floor together and how they grow together, their ability to develop players, I think doesn't change. And I think there's a lot of similarities between the two programs. Obviously, they've had stars over the years with Herringody and Murphy, and now they got Demetrius Jackson, the guys they had last year, and we've had our share over the years too. But I think just the consistency has been the biggest thing that I've admired from afar. And Mike's been terrific. Every time I've run into him, I haven't seen him yet this weekend, but he's actually going to be our keynote speaker at our Coaches versus Cancer Gala in May, that we raise a lot of money for the American Cancer Society for. But I think just that, how he's done it year in and year out. The matchup obviously starts with whenever you have a really good point guard, you always have a chance, and they have a terrific one in Demetrius Jackson. And then the other guys, how August has evolved through the year, how Beecham is shooting the ball right now, what Vastoria does for him. So you can go through the lineup. Much like us, they've had different guys contribute and help them in different roles throughout the season and help them grow. So for us, we know we'll have to be very good. And obviously this time of year, as I mentioned last weekend, the average and poor teams are on spring break or their coaches are playing golf or recruiting. And we're fortunate that we're still playing and hopefully have, like I said, a couple more weekends left in us.
All right, we got in row 4, John. Go ahead.
John Spohn with Philadelphia Daily News. Coach, I'm sure the team was prepared for Coach Ryan to leave at the end of the season because he announced a retirement. But how do you game plan for what happened, and what was the first thing you thought that you had to do to pull this thing together when Coach retired? And
Yeah, I think the first thing I thought is I had to go back to what I believed in and what my instincts were, and I felt we needed to tweak some things offensively a little bit. We went back to an old friend in the swing offense, and it really helped us not so much from the swing per se, but the spacing and the movement away from the ball was something that we needed to get better at. Part of it was the youth that we had. We didn't have a group that had played a lot of basketball together. We had a lot of growing to do, so that was part of the challenge. But I think I just, they always say, do what you know what you do. So I really trusted on the last 23 years of experience with Bo, and went back to what I really believed in, and kept it simple, and really stayed in the. I talked a lot about our team about the process, and not worrying about the results, not worrying about the scoreboard, and I got that from Nick Saban in several of his books that I've read, but not worrying about what was going to happen next week or next month. Just focus on our practice today. And we had to change some practice habits. We had to develop some practice habits. And I think that's where it started. It was really drill by drill, possession by possession in practice, and eventually that started to form better habits in the game. And even when we started 1-4 and 9-9, I saw good things happening. I saw a lot of things happening very positively in practice. Everybody focused on the last 18 seconds against Maryland when Melo Trimble hit the 25-footer against us, or the 2 threes that Purdue hit in the last minute to beat us, or our last possession at Indiana where we turned it over and they hit some free throws to get a larger lead. But I saw a lot of good things happening. It was a matter of getting better in those first 50 to 65 possessions of the game, so the last possession of the game maybe wasn't magnified, or we were in better position. And then once we had the win against Michigan State, I really think gave us confidence to kind of it reaffirmed what we were doing. I always believed in it. I knew it because I had lived it through the years with different teams and watched teams go through growing pains. We didn't have anybody in our locker room that had gone through, ups and downs. You were 66-12 in the last 2 years. So there's Hayes and Koenig's freshman and sophomore year, 2 Final Fours, 66-12. That's not the normal college basketball athlete's experience. They're usually going to have to go through some form of adversity, and this was the first really time the boat had been rocked in 2 years. So we had to grow through that a little bit.
All right, we'll go in the front row with a couple. We're over here with Dave. Go ahead.
David Jones from Penn Live. Hi, Greg. Piggybacking on what John was asking about the swing, 30 years ago, a lot of people ran patterned offenses. Now, not so much. There's a lot of high ball screen and flat fours. And do you have any kind of overarching philosophy about why you like running the swing or any patterned offense compared to just basically rolling the ball out and letting them go?
Well, I think the one thing that helped our younger guys, it gave 2 things that helped establish for us. It put Hayes and Happ in their comfort zone on the block, and it also gave us better spacing away from the ball and gave them more room to operate. The second thing was it gave all of our younger guys a comfort level. A continuity offense helped them, put them on track, so to speak, and allowed them to develop within it. We break off the pattern. I mean, we still are a little robotic in it. And that'll take time as we run it through the summer and into next year, and as they become more accustomed to it in the off season. There's a lot of motion concepts within it. It's basically ball side triangle, and we have options that we play out of the ball side, and we have options we play out of the weak side. So from that standpoint, trying to get to the free throw line was key for us, and we did. We were able to get there a lot through that stretch in January and early February, and I think that helped. This team is different than last year's team in terms of how they score and how they can score. So we had to manufacture other ways, and part of that was trying to really touch the post and play inside out, and that resulted in us getting to the free throw line more, and it also resulted us in getting better looks from the perimeter and better outside shots. We were able to play more inside out and take better threes than what we were taking maybe earlier in the year.
Did your guys buy in quickly?
Yeah, they did. I mean, I really felt this has been as seamless as a transition as I don't have anything to compare it to, but for me personally and how the team has responded and how they've grown, they've really been, from day one, they understood what my plan was. It took us a little while to maybe take steps towards that plan from an everyday standpoint, but the coaches that I've talked to over the years that always kind of forewarned me, like, hey, it's hard to take over for a legend. It's hard to step from an assistant into a head coach's role, and one that's advised me a lot has been Tom Izzo, what he went through with taking over for Heathcote. So for me, really having nothing to compare it to, it has been very, very easy, and it's large part because of what our kids have done, what our players have done. They've been phenomenal from day one.
Right here in front of me.
Zach Drapkin, Babel.com. Notre Dame is a lineup of 5 double-digit scorers. How do you plan to defend something like that?
Well, it'll be what we do as a team defensively, and we'll have to be very good in transition. We're going to have to be very good in the gaps in terms of taking away dribble penetration. We obviously got to get out in shooters. We're going to have our hands full with August inside and Colson inside. So, I don't think you look at it saying there's going to be one specific key. Last week we grew as much defensively as we had all year in the 2 games against Pittsburgh and Xavier. And hopefully that experience and developing that mindset and that maturity. And I understand this is the first time in 15 years we have not had a senior starter or a senior player in the rotation. So our maturity level, we've had to expedite that through the season. And I think last week we took a huge jump, especially on the defensive end. And we had 60 days ago, we couldn't defend like we did last weekend. So our toughness level and our commitment to the defensive end has grown exponentially in the last 2-3 weeks, but really showed its face last weekend.
All right, let's stay here in front row, right in front of you, Coach.
Bob Groats, Delaware County Daily Times. Greg, as you know, Bo was born around here, Delaware County,
Right down in Chester,
Yeah,
yeah,
right.
no, we're just a little north of it.
right down the road.
Yep.
A lot of the players he recruited, and also that you talked about that seamless tradition. That's from going from him to you. Do you still feel like Bo is like a part of this whole thing? And also, do you think that do you want to be back next year? Do you think you deserve to keep coaching this team after this year?
Did you know I signed a contract already? Okay, yeah. They actually gave me a 5-year contract about 3 weeks ago. I always had a 1-year contract. I thought, wow, I saw 5 years on that thing. Where do I sign? So I actually, it's the interim tag is the best loss we had all year was the loss of the interim tag. That's our best loss in the last 3 weeks.
I retract your question.
Okay, but Bo is a part of this program. Obviously, he's been a huge part of not only the University of Wisconsin's basketball program, but the fabric of basketball within the state of Wisconsin. Obviously, the time that he spent there and helping the game grow and develop from his time at Wisconsin prior, from 76 to 84 as an assistant, and then to Platteville, and then to Milwaukee, and then back to Madison. So he has a huge piece. He's on the Mount Rushmore of basketball in the state of Wisconsin. So that will always, obviously, I'm indebted to him for he saw a young college kid 25 years ago or 23 years ago and said, hey, do you want to get into this profession? And I did at the time, and he gave me a great opportunity, and obviously I'm very fortunate and appreciative of that.
Over here, row 3, we got Josh.
Hi, Greg. Josh Verlin, City of Basketball Love. Kind of piggybacking on that last question, do you find it maybe poetic, maybe ironic that, the year he does retire, that you guys are here in Philly, in the area where he's from, and maybe what does playing in this area mean to your guys because of that?
Well, I haven't talked to our guys about that, and they obviously know. They've heard all the Chester stories. I promised I wouldn't recite any of them this weekend for them. I'd tell them anything they want to know about Cobb, but nothing about Chester. I think it's ironic. The last time I was here was coincidentally for Butch Ryan's funeral that we flew out, myself and the seniors at that time. I think it was the 2013-14 season. Our seniors came out, and for Butch's funeral, we actually got a chance to get a little tour of Lincoln Financial. We couldn't get into this building. It was closed. They had something going on, a concert or something in here at that night. And the Phillies were in the playoffs, so we saw the field there. And so that was the last time we've been in the area that I've been here. So it's ironic, coincidental that we happen to be back near Chester and in his hometown.
We'll do last two, so we'll start with Mark, and then we'll go to Shannon after that.
Coach, you've said that shot that Bronson made was one that was actually drawn up and everything. Could you talk about that, and also about his sort of like wanting to be in the moment and wanting to take that kind of shot?
Well, I don't know if I drew it up and said run to the corner and shoot a step back 24-footer, but you just try to. Our players make plays, and Bronson hit an unbelievable shot. Probably one of the best shots in Wisconsin basketball history, or obviously it's the most fresh in everybody's mind. But the players are the one that made that happen. We were able to. It was Nigel's idea to advance instead of taking the timeout, and I said, yeah, let's do it. And so we got it to half court, and then obviously they make the plays. You give them an idea of the plan you want to have, a couple options with it, And then, it's a credit to Bronson and Ethan on the pass and everybody else for doing their job within it to make that thing happen. So, I think what was the other part of your question?
Just his fearlessness, wanting to take.
Yeah, he's always been like that. I recruited him since he was a freshman in high school at La Crosse Aquinas. So I've seen him take a lot of big shots. He hasn't made every big one I've seen him take, but you have to have a confidence inside of you. And you look back at the point guards we've had over the course of time here at Wisconsin, whether it's been Trevon Davis, Devin Harris, Jordan Taylor, Trayvon Jackson hit a lot of big shots for us. I can go through and name games that they hit shots in the last 10 seconds or big shots that were tide turners in games. And you always want to have your point guard with that type of mentality. And Bronson obviously has that. And typically, if you look, across college basketball, you have the ball in a guard's hands, in a point guard's hands. And I'm glad he's on my team. I know that. I wouldn't trade him. But how he's grown, he's one of his growth this year has been, kind of a microcosm of how our team has grown. He was scuffling a little bit early in the year and scuffled the last couple of weeks, but he's a very confident kid that believes in himself and believes in his teammates. And obviously, like I said, it's nice to see a kid like that that's worked really hard. And that's not the first time I've seen him hit big shots. I had a lot of confidence in him that, I didn't know that it was going to go in from the corner. I'm not going to be that prophetic and say I predicted it. But like I said, you always like to see it. I've always told the kids that our guys, March is your month. March is a player's month because of what goes on. And we kind of sit back and, hopefully steer them in the right direction. But it's neat to watch them go through that and live through this experience with them.
Okay, Shannon, go ahead.
Shannon Ryan, Chicago Tribune. In what ways have you seen Ethan grow and kind of become more comfortable with his role? And also, I think Frank Kaminsky used to joke about at least like jokingly complain about his intensity in practices. What was he like, and is he still like that this year?
He's mellowed a little bit. He's matured a little bit, I think, in terms of, Frank could get under a lot of people's skin. He could get under my skin. He could get on everybody else's skin. And Frank just had that way about him, that personality. And it was always, he liked to have fun. And he would poke a little bit at people and ruffle their feathers. And Ethan would do it right back to Frank. So that's on the court in terms of how physical Ethan would play. And he'd foul Frank a little extra hard once in a while, and it upset Frank. But Ethan, I think, has really matured in terms of his consistency. And I think I really saw him turn the corner more after our game at home against Nebraska, where he really struggled. I think he only scored 2 points. He was in foul trouble. Just wasn't his night. And typically with freshmen, you see a lot of peaks and valleys. You see a good night where they look, like they've been there for 3 or 4 years, and then you see like they just walked off a high school gym and came into the college game. So I think his consistency level has grown over the last month and a half. I think he practices at a higher rate for a longer period of time, and he's nowhere near where he can be. I think he's still scratching the surface. And in large part, that will be due to consistency and as he gets stronger and adds more pieces to his game. But I think that maturity level has grown quite a bit here in the last month.
Okay, thanks, Coach.
Okay, thank you.
We'll have Wisconsin players in just a minute here. No, he's here. Yeah, you can send him up. All right. We have Ethan, we have Bronson, and we have Nigel. Once again, if you have questions, we'll get a microphone to you. Please give your outlet and then ask your question. We'll start in the third row right here at the end.
Stephen Brooks, CNHI. Nigel, this question's for you. PJ Beecham from Notre Dame said that you guys had played on an AAU team together. I was just wondering what your relationship is with him and if you have any specific memories that stand out of being a teammate of his.
I was just texting him actually a second ago. I'm probably going to go in Notre Dame's locker room and say what's up to him. If that causes any trouble, you know, I got my guys with me. We'll settle that quickly. But yeah, we played AAU together. It was a great time. We won a lot of games, so that's always fun. Winning's fun. His family was great. I loved his dad. His dad was a great guy. You know, we just had fun. When you're playing AAU, growing up in, you know, junior high and high school, you're just out having fun on the weekend, whatever city you're in. So it's still great that we were able to stay in contact with one another. He eventually left to go back to a program in his home state, but he got his basketball skills from when he played with the Ohio team. So just remember that. Yeah.
We'll stay in the third row. Go ahead.
This question's for Ethan. Just as far as the season is going, you've played pretty well against the elites in the Big Ten, the elite centers, Thomas Bryant, Diamond Stone. What type of a different challenge does Zach August pose, and what type of things are you looking for in facing him?
He's one of the, you know, bigs that have quicker feet, and I've kind of used that to my advantage throughout playing in the Big Ten, and now he's kind of got the same skill set in that sense. So obviously you got to match his intensity. Coach talks about how he's a bulldog, and you know, just kind of keep him in check.
Second row here with Dana.
Dana O'Neill at the ESPN. Nigel, Coach was talking about how in December your locker room kind of came together and you guys had to kind of come together as a team. What changed and how did y'all do that to kind of get to where you are now?
Again, with that question, I don't know if it's essentially we came together. I mean, we've always been close to one another. We always hung out with one another. I think what happened was it was more of a sense of urgency combined with guys starting to believe in themselves, and especially happened after the Northwestern game. As you all know, the story's been told a million times, but after that, you know, the message I was trying to spread to the guys is that not only collectively are we better than that, but individually, the guys out there in their play, they are better players than what they and we have been playing like. And in order for us to, you know, do something, do what we all expect we can do, and, you know, start to actually win some games, we had to change our mindset and the way we approached it. And then once guys, you know, embody that, our play picked up as a team, and collectively we came together, guys started playing better, and we just tried to ride that, you know, that confidence in that way from here on out.
Up here in the front row with Dave, over here.
Dave Jones from Penn Live. Nigel, what's the technique of getting fouled? Because you get fouled a lot. What different things do you do? Do you try to get fouled a percentage of the time, or does it just happen because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and being where you're supposed to be?
Well, a couple of things. Growing up, I've always paid attention to things, and if you ever watch any great point guards, that's one of the things the commentators always mention is that he draws fouls by getting his body into the bigger guys. And also, I've watched James Harden, how he accumulates a lot of fouls. Again, I think he is or was leading in, you know, most free throw attempts, most free throws made. And, you know, I watched his technique and the way that he is able to draw fouls. I would not share that technique with you guys because I don't want to use it against us. But what he's done to do those fouls, I try to replicate, and it's worked thus far. And then it's just, you know, a matter of not being afraid of contact. When you drive to the rim, you're going to expect there's a big guy in there who's been told, you know, you must protect the rim in the paint, so you know that you're going to get hit. So it's a matter of embracing the contact and trying to, you know, fight your way through it and finish and get an and one.
All right, we'll stay here in front, right in front of me.
GregGard.com. Bronson, how does experience factor into your approach to the tournament this season?
Just having been here before and having a bunch of older experienced guys the past couple of years, me and Nigel embrace our roles as leaders on this team and just making sure everybody else is ready to play when the game comes.
We'll go to the fourth row. Let's start with John on that side. Yep. And then we'll go to the other side of the aisle.
John Small with Philadelphia Daily News. Bronson or any of the guys up there, can the transition in coaching, that's kind of hit you guys surprised? Did Coach Gard have to sell you all on anything to get this going, or was it just he'd been there, so it was kind of easier because of that?
Yeah,
Start with Bronson, and then we'll go to Ethan to answer the same question.
Like you said, he had been there for so long. He had been coaching with Coach Ryan for so many years that it wasn't really much of a change because they had the same, you know, generally the same philosophies on everything. So, and he told us right from the start that it wasn't about him, that it was about the players, and he was going to do his best to make sure that we are in the best position possible for success, and that's what he did. And he told us it wasn't an audition for him, so he just made it all about his players.
Yeah, it's always been about the players, and we had a meeting with the coaches the day after he was announced the head coach, and he talked about how he was just so happy for us that we were getting a chance to contribute and play in the NCAA tournament, and he's done a great job of making it about the team.
On the other side of the aisle there in row 4, go ahead.
Ben Spiegel with the New York Times. This is for Bronson. You said last week after you hit your shot that you would practice that exact shot. How long had you been practicing that shot, and why that particular shot?
I would say approximately 3 years or so, ever since me and Nigel started playing our one-on-one games. I think it was freshman year sometime. And I mean, the rule is that, neither of us can go to the basket, so we have to shoot all jump shots, basically. And it's pretty tough getting it over his outstretched arm. So, I mean, that's just one of the shots that, I have to perfect, basically, if I want to beat him in our one-on-one games, which I do most of the time. So, yeah.
A couple here in the second row. Start here at the end. Shannon?
Shannon Ryan, Chicago Tribune. Ethan, Coach said that he thought you had a kind of a turning point after the game against Nebraska. Do you feel that way, and what changed for you?
Yeah, I think it was a mindset was the biggest change. It wasn't anything physical or skill-wise, but I think after that game, I kind of stopped getting down on myself so much for not performing as well as I should be, and I think doing that has helped myself and my team get here.
Stay here in the second row, right down here.
One of the things that Chris Murray, Philadelphia Sunday Sun. One of your teammates improved his game this year, Vito Brown. But what has Coach meant in terms of your own individual games? This is for Nigel or Bronson or Ethan, in terms of your individual game, and also you guys as a team.
Let's start with Nigel and then go to Bronson on that one.
He's done a great job, again, with being in the Wisconsin program, of making sure you preach the fundamentals, because as, non-cool, I guess you could say, it seems to portray that to especially younger kids doing the fundamentals. That's what makes, you able to do the better things in basketball. For example, one of the things he always harps on me about is when I drive through him, I need to focus on jump stopping instead of, going off 1 foot. And that jump stopping allows you to, if you don't have a shot right away, you have a chance to pump fake, you can pivot, you can find an open teammate. By going off 1 foot, you're already in the air, so the only thing you can do is either throw up a bad shot if it's not there, throw a terrible pass if it's not there, or travel. So he tries to emphasize doing the fundamentals of things, and then from there, you're just playing a game of basketball, and that's something not only he tells myself, but the team.
And Bronson?
Like Nigel said, he really stresses the fundamentals, and he's also a perfectionist. I mean, I'm sure he kind of got that from Coach Ryan. He's always making sure that we're doing the right thing on and off the court in practice, just 100% of the time. Even if we win a game, he still and we play really well, he can still find 100 clips for game film the day after to show us. So, but me personally, just driving more north and south and getting my shoulders to the rim and finishing through contact.
All right, in the fourth row back down there.
Greg Logan of Newsday for Bronson. Two-part question. First, what does it do for your confidence to make a shot like that? And second, what is the most interesting thing been about the reaction to that shot since then?
Yeah, well, I was in a little bit of a shooting slump for the past couple games, so it definitely felt really good to get out there and make a couple shots, and especially, a game winner, a game tie and a game winner like that. So hopefully I can let that, propel me forward in these next 4 games or so. So yeah, and I mean, I just get asked more questions like this, so that's pretty much it.
We'll take one last question, Shannon, down here.
A follow-up for Ethan. I think Frank Kaminsky talked about you guys kind of, I guess you getting to him last year in practices, and Coach was saying that you could kind of give it right back to him. One of the few guys, I guess, who can do that. But how much did going against him help you in ways? And for the other 2 guys, Coach said that Ethan's mellowed out a little this year. Has he, or is he as intense as he was in practices last year?
Start with Ethan.
I mean, I owe a lot of my game to Frank, whether it's him, verbally telling me what to do, or me just learning from experience playing against him. I've learned a lot of moves from him. I've even learned some stuff watching Nigel the past couple of years, and having Frank to go against, you know, the best player in the country last year, all year long was something special, and I think redshirting was the best decision, and I think I wouldn't have been able to play against him every day in practice if I hadn't done that.
Bronson or Nigel, you want to chime in?
I think Ethan's always been a pretty mellow dude. He's just, like you were saying before, he's done a lot better job recently of not getting so down on himself, especially since, you know, the first day he got on campus and those first few practices he, you know, took criticism pretty hard. So he's definitely gotten more mentally tough in that sense.
Okay. Thanks, fellas.